It is Wednesday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from the DKI Studios, 234 King Street East in downtown Toronto, out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Well, we're going to swing the spectrum of, I don't know how to put it, one that has enormous courage and fortitude, and then the other that, quite frankly, is the opposite. In stunning fashion, I almost would say. Also, we'll take a look at probably some devastation south of the border when it comes to their national soccer program. And really, historically, you could argue one of the worst losses in the history of the American program when it comes to national soccer. It's literally a devastation push.
They're doing something.
Yeah, they're doing something.
Yeah. You see, when they first started this money machine called USA Soccer, what it kind of reminded me of, and it kind of started in the early 90s when the United States actually hosted a World Cup. So they decided that they were going to put these funds towards this program, and they built it up well. At that time, it was almost like the comparison, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with that one kid that's on your hockey team, that the only reason he's on the hockey team is because dad just bought
It is Wednesday. RawMikeRichards.com, broadcasting live from 234 King Street East, the DKI Studios out of the Pacific Junction Hotel. Coming up today, two stories really that are on each side of the spectrum. One, I think, that shows a lot of courage, and the other one, absence of the word courage. Unbelievable. Some of the stories we'll talk about today, including the failure of the U.S. Olympic team, which is one, I think, in the history of their sport, and that is at the biggest of national programs. There may not be a bigger failure than what the Americans did last night in Trinidad Tobago, in what was a weird game to begin with. Some of the strangest goals, and an event that I thought would have even drawn local people to a stadium that was vacant. You know, I'm not even talking about the size of the stadium. Someone was asking about it doesn't matter. You can see a World Cup qualifier if you go to, like, if you watch that Lithuania, I think it was Lithuania and England, Dave.
Okay.
And as you know, you've traveled around the world. You've covered just about every kind of sporting event you can think of. Folks, the world's not all equal. It's not all even. And if you go to Lithuania or Latvia or Malta or
Gibraltar,
the Faroe
Syria.
Islands, I mean, they don't have the equivalent of the 80,000-90,000 seat stadium. They just don't. You will, in some ways, it's kind of the charm of it. It takes them back to why they probably wanted to play footy in the first place. So it wasn't that. It just, we'll get to some of those issues, but I'm telling you, as someone who does follow soccer, this is borderline disgraceful, and I don't know what they do. And I know Klinsmann, they want to lynch him as it's his fault, but I got to tell you, there are other guys on the pitch who are responsible for it, and they will see this in their nightmares. And we'll get to that. Speaking of things that show strength, so last night, Dave, the opener in Las Vegas, and you just knew it was going to be emotional.
Yep.
In fact, right now, in all honesty, when you take a look at those that would talk about going to Las Vegas, like there used to be like this huge excitement, and there should be. But what do you think of when I say Las Vegas or even Vegas? What's the first thing that comes to your mind?
Right now or
right
altogether?
now? Right
the,
now.
The shootings.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't help it's one of those devastating points of a lifetime that you always remember, and this is unfortunately one of them. This, as far as numbers is concerned, this isn't a 9/11 because 9/11 had so many more casualties, but the gruesomeness of what took place on October the 1st is something you'll never forget, and the way the Vegas expansion team, and remember this is an expansion team, handled this opening ceremonies. They may as well have been in the league for 100 years because they were 1,000% professional. And I cannot say enough good things about how the entire opening ceremony was and how they brought out first responders with the players, how Derek England actually talked to the crowd beforehand. And trust me, an opening ceremony isn't the easiest thing to do. A new expansion ceremony that was looking forward to pyro and fireworks and celebrations, to have something like this happen only days before a country, let alone a state, let alone a city, was devastated by this massacre, and they handle it like pros. And I applaud them. I looked at that, and a part of me, just the way they've handled it and just the way they've handled the team, I'm cheering for Vegas.
So am I. So am I.
It's almost like that second or third favorite team. You know what I mean?
I don't know how you don't, Dave. Bill Foley, who's the owner, and there was a lot of things that they did that people mocked and made fun of. Even the announcement of what their name was going to be looked. It looked ridiculous.
Yeah,
it was like out of a comedy.
It never
movie.
quite worked out the way they probably had anticipated it. The response, right?
It just, and then you had those that took a look at the logo and what their jerseys would look like, the name of the team, the colors of the team, you name it. It looked like, oh my God, is this going to be like the Bad News Bears? Like, how embarrassing is this going to be? And I'll be honest, from the moment they got this thing together and started playing some of the preseason games, the first thing that Dave, and it was Dave who noticed it first, their PR people and those that work on social media are fantastic.
Yep.
And look, that might be like, okay, all right, Richards, why does that relate? Trust me, we've worked for enough companies and seen enough teams that you see a consistency, a line from ownership all the way through to every detail, including what you're just going to discount what social media is now in this day and age. If it's not great, you can smell it out. These guys have been bang on it since day number one.
Yeah, 100%. It's hard to be the best franchise in sport when you've only been around for a couple of months and when you literally have only played your third game of your entire franchise's career. But the Vegas Twitter account by far is the best MLB account, NHL account, NFL account, CFL account, you name the league, and I'll give you a better account with the Vegas franchise. It is tremendous, the interaction, the wit, the quickness of it, and for being that team that people kind of went, Vegas has a team, eh?
Yeah.
No.
Eye rolling.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is outstanding, and I can't recommend it enough. Considering even some of the give and take between Vegas and other NHL teams, not just fan participation, because that's great too, but even between the NHL teams, and quite frankly, they belong. They are part of what is 2017 and beyond. And you watch the younger audience that will be the older audience in 20 years is going to remember exactly what happened in this year. It's almost like
the Blue Jays. Go look at the snow game against the White Sox.
People remember that, man.
They're going to remember that. And here's the other thing, too, to keep in mind. If you're a new franchise, Dave, just like we're a new business, the one thing that we want to do is we want to impress our new clients. We're a new business, and so, for instance, DKI Canada, they come aboard, and I want to make sure that everything sort of looks right, and we mention it the right amount of times, and the show looks the way I want it to look. Probably the last thing I'm going to think of doing is making sure that I cover it up with something else, some sort of slogan. Well, Foley decided that because of the significance of what was happening at in his town, they covered all the advertising on the boards and on the ice and replaced it all with one simple message: Vegas strong. So let's go to Derek England before the game. And again, to think they have someone on the team who has this much history with living in Vegas as a hockey player.
Yep.
Like, to me, I don't know if strategically it was done, because it's tough to just carry someone that you have so few roster spots.
Oh, sure.
But you know what? This is as close to, and I hate to use the word perfection, because I don't think they were looking for that, but they wanted to do it, quote unquote, as we like to say in sports now, the right way. And Vegas, the Golden Knights, absolutely nailed it. This is property of the National Hockey League, and I think it's is it MSNBC? NBCSN, just to make sure we get it correct, and property of the National Hockey League.
Like all of you, I'm proud to call Las Vegas home. I met my wife here, my kids were born here, and I know how special this city is. To all the brave first responders that have worked tirelessly and courageously throughout this whole tragedy, we thank you. To the families and friends of the victims, know that we'll do everything we can to help you and our city heal. We are Vegas strong.
That, once again, is, Dave, pretty emotional stuff. It was well done. They did it, as I said, the right way. And I'll tell you what, not that I wasn't going to go, or we wouldn't have gone down to watch a Golden Knights game, but, there's so much also on your agenda in Las Vegas when you go there. You may or may not feel like you want to go to the game or not. Now I just want to go and see them, to support them in a hockey sense, not a Vegas sense, which I have to be honest, as I said, it might have been 50-50. Look, Shane Knighty, the sheriff, we know him. We'll get him on the show shortly. We know that. He's been a really good friend of the show for a long time. But I can't help but think now we're going to have different questions for him.
It's times and days have changed about from one approach when we were discussing this in September to what we're talking about here in the early weeks of October.
No kidding. And don't sell by the way, David's point about Ground Zero and 9/11, and by the numbers, obviously, it's not the same thing. But for American people, and for that to happen on their soil, trust me, not that you compare the two tragedies.
No, you never do that.
But it will be, in its own sense, a ground zero of that part of the world, and truly for the enormous loss and the senselessness of it, because people are still wanting to hear the definitive reason, the evil why this happened. Whether he was angry at the U.S. government, or he was jilted by someone, or a hatred of something. Give me a reason that someone's going to say, by the way, here's the letter that I found in the house. It explains everything. And we're never going to get any of that. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
Not knowing something has happened, no matter what extreme it is, from one end to another, is maybe one of the worst things in life.
It is. It is. It's worse.
Just not knowing exactly, not knowing why you were fired, not knowing why the tragedy happened, not knowing why, a certain incident happened when it happened, when you want answers.
Well, this thing, wife, children,
exactly,
whoever it happens to be, like, you've got to give. Why did they do this? And we know that there are times in life where evil wins, and it did in this case, and therefore to have a definitive answer is the most evil you can think of, because there's no reason, and that's the why the word senselessness comes into it and makes it that much worse. So to think that there won't be a monument at some point, or there won't be,
well, there will be, yes.
or like a
Absolutely.
ground zero type of thing, there will be, and I'm sure that the community wants to have that, because for some there will never be closure, and I think that's really what you were alluding to. There won't be closure, but there's got to be something in which the city can move forward, because it is America's party place. It is where America comes to have fun and to forget everything else. And right now, they can't forget that, and it might take a very long time.
Exactly.
And at least Vegas, as a hockey franchise, is doing it the right way in remembering it. And I think the way that David just said moments ago, I think a lot of people, because of the class and the dignity that they've shown, that the Vegas Golden Knights will become something much more than an expansion team, because that's all it was going to be. It was going to be the fun and the novelty of, I don't know, when, and you can't say Winnipeg because that doesn't follow. It's been a long time since we had a pure expansion team like this.
Correct.
But the when all of a sudden there's a team in Anaheim, what? There's a team somehow in Raleigh, North Carolina. Oh, wow, that's like a real cool. That's all gone. And so now it represents something far greater than just a hockey team, which, by the way, that comes with its pressures too, Dave.
Sure it does. Yeah.
Because you can't just be a hockey team now. When you show up, do you not think in most of these arenas something's going to be attributed to what happened in Las Vegas the first time they show up?
First time they show up, yes. Every single, not only from management right down to the players. If when Vegas goes on that first big long road trip up the East Coast or wherever it is, because they've been in their areas. They went to Dallas, they went to Phoenix, and now they're home to Phoenix. And when they eventually make that East Coast trip, how's the family? Where were you when this happened? What was this?
You're not going to get away from it.
You're not going to get away from it just because of when you're going to a different city and a different morning skate. They want their own action too. The newspapers, the television networks, the radio stations. They want their story of such and such a player and where he was when it happened, or their special story. And that's kind of because of how massive an event this was on October 1st for all the wrong reasons. But nonetheless, it's something that, these players will never forget their first year as expansion hockey players with the Vegas franchise. By the way, Vegas wins at 5-2. They're perfect 3-0. Derek England actually scores the second goal, which is just like,
that's crazy.
They should write a book on this. James Neal has 5 goals on the season in 3 games. He's second only to Alex Ovechkin, so it's a fantastic start. And Marc-Andre Fleury, maybe, with all due respect to Sergei Bobrovsky, has been the best goaltender in the NHL so far, and the reason why I wanted him to end up somewhere else and not with the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah, a team that has blue in it, from what I understand.
That's right. And I'm not going to say the name because
I'm a flying vehicle.
I'm
a flying machine on their jersey. And you know what? Good on him. And he's the type of guy that he ends up there and thinks to himself, okay, I've taken that other team to championships.
Yep.
I'm kind of shown the door, even though I kind of got them there again. Now I'm going to Vegas that's given no chance. You know what I mean? No chance. And there's this horrific tragedy in which people are leaning on this team like it represents more than just hockey. So I guess I better play the best goaltending of my career. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
That I love too.
And he's been one of the poster players for this franchise and has lived up to it at every single level along the way. It's, just like I said off the top.
I've never interviewed him. Have you?
I've interviewed him. Yeah, the Flower. Yeah, and you know what? Really well liked in that dressing room.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit there and start pointing fingers early in the year because it's only 3-4 games into the year. But I'm curious to see what the Penguins look like in December and January, because you took out a key piece of a locker room atmosphere that has been there for a decade. A lot of people forget this. When the Pittsburgh Penguins started building, they built through the draft, and that first piece was Marc-Andre Fleury, Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby, and you start, and you make the trade, Jordan Stahl leaves, you come, that kind of thing, and you start adding the Chris Letang through the draft. You take out that major piece. And Matt Murray's a very good goaltender, don't get me wrong, but you're taking away a friend of Sidney Crosby and a guy
It matters.
that the franchise looked at as saying, that's our, tell me how many goaltenders were picked where they were picked, like Marc-Andre Fleury. And there's maybe a couple.
And also in his own struggles as a professional. Now think about it. One of the things that is a killer for a goalie at times in terms of their makeup, emotionally, just where they are mentally, he lets in a goal. And I say lets in a goal. He gets beaten on a goal in the World Junior Championships when it's a tournament that's on the rise.
Yeah.
It's still coming up.
I think that's against Patrick O'Sullivan, by the way.
Yeah. And that goal that goes in is devastating.
Yes.
So he goes through that. He comes as a pro. Then what happens in pro? Well, he has these great regular seasons, and then people don't believe in him when it comes to the playoffs when it counts. He fights his way through that and actually gets a chance to hold up cups. Now this. I don't know. I think the guy's remarkable. You know what? We've got to figure out a way to get him on, because I really... Or
maybe the sheriff could help us with that.
Sheriff will help us out.
Call in a favor there.
Well, we still want to go down there. In all seriousness, it's still a show that I think would be awesome for us to do. We have so many connections down there.
So travel companies, sponsor the three of us. Go down there. Make it your own. Make it big.
Yeah.
Make it Vegas. Do it when the Jets
Make
are
it
there,
Vegas.
Yeah.
Someone's going to steal that. You watch.
You like that?
Oh, I think it's really good.
Another hashtag that gets swiped. And
it's like, make it Vegas. We're red tag. Hey, wait a minute. Red tag. Okay, this is the stuff that we respect as teammates. Here's something we may not respect. I'm telling you this Steven Strasburg story. Look, like I said, I'm not a baseball aficionado. And sometimes I really got to work hard to warm myself up to the sport, Dave. Because the one thing in the sports that I do like is you're kind of cracking skulls each and every day. If you're a guy that gets paid, what is it, $175 million?
Yep, over 7 years.
At one point, the pitch count, he's throwing too much. Okay.
You sound like his agent. Pretty good. I know you do a lot of impressions, but now you do agents?
Was that Boris? Is that what I was doing there?
Yeah, it was Scott Boris.
You're making him throw too much. Actually, I know what he does sound like. It is nothing like that. But here you are in the crucial moments of a team and a franchise in Washington that really has a similar psyche to the one that plays hockey not that far away. Like, what are you going to do? What can you come through at some point? And here's a guy in Steven Strasburg whose team needs him badly. Yesterday, it has been noted, this is not me making it up, he ran a half mile and said, I feel wheezy. But he ran a half mile. Just so you know, a lot of baseball players have never run a half mile. Never. I mean, they get to first base and like, oh, come on. What do you mean there's three more? I mean, this is a sport that's not known as one that, if they didn't do that, might be triathlon. This is not that sport. So here you have their manager, Dusty Baker, who, by the way, is also on very thin ice. We know what the rotation is because how many reporters, Dave, would be covering this team at this time of year? 100?
It's a extra addition just because of the significance of the series.
So around the baseball world, you kind of know who's up. So in regular rotation, this actually would be, with the 4 days rest, this is Steven Strasburg's turn. So first of all, we're going to hear the question about who's going to start Game 5. And as you know, this is a 5-game series. Once again, property of Major League Baseball, and I believe courtesy of ESPN.
Be starting for you tomorrow.
We're going to go as planned with Tanner.
Was Strasburg consideration, and why did you decide to stick with Tanner?
Well, we decided to stay with Tanner because, number one, he was slated.
Lie.
Didn't work out for Strauss with his bullpen day.
Nope.
And, we're all creatures of habit, and plus we got full confidence in Tanner and Strauss. It'd have been better because he's feeling under the weather, like a lot of my team is, and so this day actually comes as a plus for our team.
Are you serious? Under the weather? How would you ever show your face again to anyone in that clubhouse when they need you the most? And by the way, has he been good? He's been very, very good. I mean, this is the guy you're looking up to. What would you think if Mark Messier said, I'd love to play Game 7, but I'm a little under the weather?
Mark Messier would continue to play Game 7 even if he was in a hospital, locked down to a bed. He would probably find his way out of it.
With one arm.
And still play that game. We're talking polar opposites. This may be the softest athlete in sport because he better be deathly ill. And I mean deathly. Not running a half mile, not doing a bullpen session, not, has the sniffles. I mean, honestly,
I'm looking at the manager. I'm looking at the manager too, Dave, because if you're my manager, and I know it's and then you come and they go. By the way, everyone knows what the rotation was.
Yep.
So you look like an idiot. You just lied on national television.
Completely.
So now it's even worse. To me, it's worse.
You know what? Being and I don't know Dusty Baker, but I know Dusty Baker's old school because I still remember Dusty Baker, the baseball player. Dusty Baker was told what to say. And when Dusty Baker comes out with the Dusty Baker book, there'll be a chapter about this and how pissed off he was because of what he had to do.
So you think this was fully fed to him?
100%.
Okay.
100%. I as a baseball traditionalist that I am, I can't sit here and think to myself that this old school manager has sat there and went, hey, you got yourself a little cold there, Stevie? No problem. I'll pitch the guy that is third, fourth on the rotation in the situation that will determine my managerial career. Because guess what? If they don't win this series, he's the next guy fired. We talked to John Farrell, got it today.
Yes.
Dusty Baker's the next guy fired as soon as the Cubs eliminate the Nationals, and I will guarantee that.
Could be if Joe Girardi doesn't win, that could be. And look, he might want to leave anyway too. It sounds like there's no love lost, as we learned from Clark Judge. No love lost.
There isn't. But the thing is, Dusty Baker has had a reputation of not being able to win that big game, that big series. I don't want to say it because I really like the guy, but in a sense, in a hockey sense, Dusty Baker might be whatchamacallit, the Barry Trotz of MLB, where he has a fantastic regular season. He has all the weapons at his disposal.
And Jacques Martin went through that with Ottawa for those years too.
Yeah, exactly. Winning President's trophies and clinching divisions in the mid part of February, and then
rolling over. Well, here's to me what becomes even more embarrassing, because I'm looking at that going, that's horrible. But then it continues on somehow like it was sponsored by Claritin or some drug company that clears up these anxieties, or not anxieties, that clears up sniffles and allergies. Maybe it's due to mold, Dave. Mold. Never heard that before. No. And once again, property of Major League Baseball and ESPN, and this is also, too, this is not ESPN. What is this one? We want to make sure that this is the proper one, because, we have to be correct on this. I think it's not Sports Illustrated, is it? Oh, I guess we have to reload here.
Uh-oh.
Boy, I'm just I'm loving the technology today, Dave. As you know,
I
always do. This is courtesy of who?
Sports Illustrated.
Sports Illustrated. Okay, this is here's
I used to have a subscription to Sports Illustrated back in the day when people used to actually subscribe to magazines.
Well, it used to be thick and have all this stuff in it, and then it got really thin, and
then it became a little pamphlet where
and the swimsuit wasn't as revealing as I'd like.
Fair enough.
And that's that.
Tough but fair.
So here we go. Property of Major League Baseball and Sports Illustrated. Here is a more in-depth look the difficulties that are being suffered, the tragedy of the Washington Nationals.
You know, a lot of my team is kind of under the weather with the change of weather and the air conditioning in the hotel and the air conditioning here. And this is time of the year, you know, for mold around Chicago. I think it's mold because I have it too. So, you know.
Are you serious, honestly?
And as a baseball reporter in that press room, shame on you for going
Air conditioning?
Air conditioning and mold, really? Don't you sit in basically the same sort of hotels the entire season, and in the months of June, July, August, September,
in Texas, in
air
Florida,
and I mean, don't get me wrong, Mike. This may surprise a lot of people out there, but the Washington Nationals don't stay at Motel 6. They don't.
They're a little better than that.
They're a little better than that. Hey, they're even better than the Holiday Inn.
I think so.
Oh, hold on. What is this? Okay.
That actually worked out well for what I said.
Yeah, it actually did. Actually, I think there was people talking about Edwin Encarnacion, who's been out. He landed, when they say landed awkwardly, I might go a little further than that. Like if Steven Strasburg had his ankle bent like, you know when you get, so have you seen those kids with a Stretch Armstrong doll?
Yeah.
And they go, hey, look, Tommy, this is your leg. That's what it looked for Double E. That was bad.
Yep.
And he's going, you know what? I feel good enough. I'm going to play Game 5.
See, I'm surprised.
That's the opposite.
Yeah.
He should be in a wheelchair. If it's Strasburg, then we're going to his funeral. He just died.
Strasburg would shut it down for 2018. Never mind. We'll see a training camp 19.
We're gathered here today for a wonderful man. Like I seriously, what a difference. And that to me is just, you look at the spectrums of what it takes to be, accountable, professional. Okay, professional. Like, I don't know. You go into that room the next day and look, a lot of things that people think happen in the dressing room don't. And here's the one I think, Dave, and because you were closer to the dressing room, certainly the professional levels than I was. It was never my job. But I know from guys that sometimes people think when someone gets like a really huge salary, or there's like, or let's say he's a no-show in camp, there's these conversations that go on in the dressing room. I can tell you, those are conversations that never happen.
Bingo. It's 100%.
If Russell doesn't show up to camp, and he's our number one goalie, nothing. Okay. So let's say he is.
This isn't a very good team. Is that what you're getting at?
You can add things in there. You know, he's afraid of things that are black. You know, oh, the puck, oh my God.
Circular object scary.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe the ice is too cold for him. But when he comes back in and he finally resolves the issue, he's our number one guy, and he gets $200 million a game. He sits down beside me, and we never talk about it. It's just how it is in pro sports.
Just 100% correct.
People think like, well, they're going to be pretty pissed off when Russell comes back with his gold shoes and his rings and his goals against average is over 10.
Yep.
And he's getting $200 million a game. It doesn't matter because it's none of your, it's not your business. Your business is your business.
Bingo.
And whatever Dave gets for a living, that's what he gets for a living. Maybe it's a better agent. There's a whole bunch of things that go into it, but it's something that you don't talk about. But this, how does Russell now sit down beside me if he's like that number and says, I can't play? We got a problem.
That's 1,000% more of a problem than what you just alluded to. What do you?
So if you're who is it? Harper? Like who?
Bryce Harper would be the guy. Yeah. Bryce Harper would be the guy. The only way, and we're sitting here speaking on the East Coast at 10:30 in the morning, 10:40 in the morning. The only way the Nationals save face, and I don't know if they can, is if Bryce Harper goes out today during batting practice and they ask him about it, and he comes out and sells it perfectly. I'm talking facials like WWE style, saying that I've never seen a guy more sick in my life.
Yeah,
that is the only way they could possibly sit there, and because this is another a chapter of the Strasburg book that we're going to be reading, and we have previous chapters, just like Matt Harvey with the New York Mets and his pitching. We have chapters, and do we have another chapter coming up in 2018? Probably 19. Yeah, I'm betting on it. 2020. I think you could probably guarantee that's going to happen. And at the end of it, you're going to look through it and go, man, this guy was arguably one of the softest athletes in North America.
Which brings up something that was, as you were going through that, something that I think that is sort of interesting, which is soft athletes.
Soft athletes.
So if we're going through the cavalcade
Yes.
of athletes that you don't want on your team,
Oh man.
simply because they're considered to be that soft. If we're looking at the all-time flakes,
Yeah.
the softest guys where you roll, and again, sometimes at the most inopportune times, who are the guys that you look at and go, never would I want that guy on my team?
Oof.
Sometimes they're players of substance.
Yep.
Like someone's going to say, yeah, okay, Alexander Semin. Yeah, but this we know.
Yep.
Like if that slap fight didn't sell you enough on what your teammate is, regardless of what his offensive output, I guess at times could have been. Who's a soft athlete that you look at and go, I would never have this guy on my team? Never.
This is tough.
It's a tough one. Because generally we tend to walk by it.
Yeah.
Step over them because we don't want to talk about that.
I'd go in basketball. I'd go Chris Bosh. I always make references
Interesting.
of when I talk to a friend and I said, "What are you, the Chris Bosh?" And they sit there at me and look at, and they, and even me and my wife will say that to me. And the emphasis of Chris Bosh is, it's almost like the barking dog in the window. Car drives by, dog barks, mad, angry. Dog walks outside in front of the public, shuts up completely. That's the Chris Bosh.
Chris Bosh, interesting.
Dwight Howard, I'd put in that conversation for soft athletes that have kind of called it a day. NFL, I think we're seeing evidence of it in Miami with their star quarterback Luke Perry, or no, Jason Priestley slash
one of them.
Jay Cutler. I think he's been very soft as far as just not being able to play when he's had certain injuries. Troy Gloss comes to mind when I covered the Blue Jays, because Troy Gloss, and I'm not joking when I say this, so look it up if you don't believe me, Troy Gloss did not play a number of games because of a hangnail on a finger.
Yeah, and that's not, and also a different category than injury prone, because Jose Reyes did have at some point a pretty remarkable baseball career. We obviously didn't see it in Toronto.
Yep.
But he was probably more injury prone than it was that he was a soft player. I don't think he was a soft player.
Right. Mike Ribeiro in the NHL. Stephane Richer. I'm sorry.
I know that name has come up from time to time.
You mentioned Alex Semin. I would put that in the same kind of category. Geez.
What about roast beef? Is there someone that you take a look at and you go, there's no way, man. He's never going to be on my team. Way too soft.
I don't know. I haven't ever really thought about it, but I would put Semin in that category. Maybe one, if not both, of the Kostitsyn brothers that aren't in the NHL anymore. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough.
It is a tough one
I haven't
because,
put much thought into it.
Well, Strasburg right now is really. If we're at the radio station, we're opening up the phone lines. He's going to win. He's number one.
I remember a story. I don't know if you guys remember Carl Pavano. He was a Yankee pitcher. He placed himself on the DL once because he had a sore back after shoveling snow. That's a soft player in my books. $40 million contract at the time, which was really good cake. In the 90s, I guess that would be. And he was put on the DL at that time. I'm not going to say soft because we don't know. Maybe he's just being hidden. But, I mean, what's the injury on Joffrey Lupul? What was the injury on Stefan Robida? But you can't really blame the athlete because management have kind of tucked them to the side.
Well, now it's become a completely different issue.
Exactly. So it's not really fair to sit there and.
Well, and I'm also, if you want to get into soccer. We just don't have time.
No, it is a.
we just. I'm sorry. As much as I like soccer, I just. I think there's a lot of guys that who feign those. I mean, come on, and that's the one thing about North America, and that's the sort of leads us to our conversation about the disaster that is the American national team. Now, disaster not because of they're what's Canada in the world? Are they in maybe the top 100, like 80 something? So I mean, it's not like you're picking on those guys because unless we put monies into cultivating the soccer culture in a similar way that you did hockey, then how do you look at it and say why it's such a failure? Which is why I think, conversely, that the women's national soccer team is unbelievable. For the heights they've got, for the amount of money that you can argue that's actually put into it, Christine St. Clair and the rest of that team are just
outstanding,
unbelievable. Like, they truly are unbelievable. For the Americans, this has been something, as you said, since probably the 80s, where they've decided, with a country that is that big and has that much money, and I know because, I think even probably in the mid 70s, so that's, back when I lived in Eugene, Oregon, the one thing that my younger brother played was soccer, and you saw all these young kids going out playing soccer, and I'm like, soccer? And I would have known nothing about soccer. Who plays that? You wear shorts, the guys roll around on the ground, they're holding their ankle, you can't touch the ball with your hands. What? What kind of sport is this? I think it's an English thing. I mean, that's how I would have thought. So they have really built an enormous culture around soccer in the United States, to the point where it's just assumed that when they go in CONCACAF that they're just going to win every single time, whether they got to beat a Costa Rica or whoever, and of course Mexico's going to be a big power coming out of there anyway. But seriously, the Americans to not qualify? Well, they didn't. And last night, all they had to do was beat Trinidad and Tobago, which
it's two countries.
That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, it's it should still be attainable, but nonetheless, it's a handicap match.
Yeah. And someone said, well, maybe the Toboggans are better soccer players. No, I don't think they're called Toboggans.
No, they're not called that.
As far as I know, that's the incorrect word. But now we can't play because I know UEFA is going to goon us. So what do we have? The actual call of the game? All right, so here, the goals, by the way, the first one is an own goal, and it kind of flips over Howard, who plays in the Premiership. This is a big...
Tim Howard.
Tim Howard.
Been a very good goalie for a long time.
And the second goal is one of these goals in space. So that means it's way outside of the box. And he hammers the ball. But these guys at that level, if you're in the right spot in your net, you're just going to, if it's really surprising and really got some pace on it, they jump up, knock the ball over the crossbar, and that's usually one of those, he definitely came close on that one, David. Yep. But what happens when it kind of doesn't go over the bar because you're out a little too far, and it goes in the goal?
We have to remember they played a game just a few days ago.
Here's how it sounded.
Seems to be affecting the players.
Long distance blast, and it's Alvin Jones. One for the legend books. Oh my! His first Trinidadian goal, and he might as well retire right now.
Yeah, what are you going to say? It's his first Trinidadian goal, and he thinks that he might as well retire. Now, keep in mind, this is all in the first half. The Americans get one in the 46th minute of the second half, Dave. So you have the entire second half to either equalize,
tie it up, yep,
and move on to extra time. That's it, the 46th minute, and they get maybe one other kind of set piece that gets saved by a nice save by the goalkeeper, but that's it. And so when you take a look at that program, that is almost preordained when it comes up that they're going to go into the World Cup. They don't. So interesting on ESPN, Taylor Twellman, who he's retired now, but just so you know, it was like from 2002 and 2009, the guy is like, what is he? He's Patrick Kane. He scores more goals than any other player in the MLS. Youngest player ever to score 100 goals in 2009 at the age of 29. So he is just someone that is familiar with the highest level. He got like 30 caps for the U.S. team. He knows what he's talking about. And when people say he scores 6 international goals, well, if you play in that period of time, 6 is, you're part of the international program. So last night on ESPN, he starts talking about the program. And not just the loss to Trinidad, and not just Jurgen Klinsmann. He talks about the program and the failure of it and all players in a very impassioned plea, once again, courtesy of our friends at ESPN.
Not about tonight. It's not about Jurgen Klinsmann. It's not just about Bruce Arena. As a whole, U.S. soccer is not prepared. They have not done a good enough job of getting this group ready to play. And keep in mind, the last 2 Olympics, no United States. Those players that would be playing in the Olympics, 24 through 28, how many of them are in this roster? The players got to be good enough, too. So a lot of people on social media right now want to say it's Jurgen Klinsmann's fault, it's Bruce Arena's fault, it's Sunil Gulati's fault. By the way, as an ex-player, Every single one of those players,
they can take some
nightmares
of that. Yep.
for the rest of their lives, because this is an utter embarrassment with the amount of money that is in Major League Soccer and in this sport. You can't get a draw, a tie against Trinidad? Max, you don't deserve to go to the World Cup.
They certainly did. And people always say about it's tough to get points here, but I see Mexico get points.
Come on.
We can stop using that excuse.
Yes.
This is. You look at this team. You look at this. They're going to be sitting around next summer, and they're going to be watching this World Cup go on without them. So what does this program do? Is this group? Do you blow it up?
This is everything, though, Max. So, because I remind everyone, 2,000 euros, Germany laid an egg, and they all came together. Bundesliga, second Bundesliga, DFB, the German Football Federation, all came together with a 10-year plan. Guess what happened in 10 years? They won that World Cup. If this failure does not wake up everyone from U.S. Soccer to Major League Soccer, from pay-to-play to broadcasters to everything, then we're all insane. Because the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing, knowing the result.
Love it.
And if we don't change it, and I mean we, everyone.
Yeah, that point's well taken. And it's funny. Those were the kinds of conversations, Dave, that Hockey Canada had. I would say back in, would it be the 90s? The mid
the summit,
90s?
the hockey summit.
The hockey summit. Yep. I want to say it was somewhere in the mid 90s. Was it not?
It was before what happened in Salt Lake, where they went gold in Salt Lake, and
because that was sort of the start of look what we did.
Yeah, and everybody takes a breath. It says okay,
but this country was freaking out.
Because
we weren't winning. We weren't winning at the national level or the international level, and then it was like sort of Hockey Canada as well, where I think a lot of things happened also, and quite frankly, always has to happen at the grassroots level. It's what we do in this country. It's serious about the sport of hockey. I mean, Timbits, when did that come? I mean, all those small things nationally across the country had to happen. And then you look at the results. Then all of a sudden, the World Juniors, World Hockey Championships, the probably the level of the Canadian hockey players, because this has become very competitive worldwide in the sport of hockey. And so I understand what Twellman was saying, because the Germans were so good for so long, they looked awful at that period of time. It takes them 10 years, and look at them now. They completely revamped even the style of football that they played. And just for soccer people, generally gets really boring. The Germans, Dave, are not boring. They're the version of, they're like the Edmonton Oilers / Toronto Maple Leafs when it comes now to soccer. They're going to score some goals.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to do some stuff. They can play with that ball, set pieces. They're flying all over the place. That's what Germany has done. And as Twellman's saying, if the U.S. don't start doing what the Germans did back in the day, what Canada did with the summit, then the Americans are going to find themselves falling behind. And guess what? The rest of the world won't be crying.
1999.
99, okay.
I just had to look it up just to be sure on that. But, that was the old, gather up the troops, let's figure this out. And, for the last 2 decades, because you look at 99, we're coming up to 2018, almost, 20 years later, Canada has dominated the international scene for the last 2 decades, and a lot of that could be pointed at those meetings in 1999.
Well, I'm going to show you a soccer example of maybe what they need to do. As you know, I find videos from around the world to discover new techniques. This soccer team has figured out a way on how to play better defense. I don't know what part of the world this is from, but I will tell you, it looks like it's the Bobby Boucher defense in playing soccer. So, Jurgen Klinsmann, U.S. national soccer program. If you want to play better soccer, then you might want to try this. There's the ball heading towards the goalkeeper. See a little rough stuff there. And how do you deal with that, Dave? You do.
Drop kick.
Yeah, that's how you. That's.
You got some pretty good air on that. I thought that was Tito Santana there back in the 80s.
No, there are other programs like the one that Luis Suarez is a part of, where you need to suck the blood of the people that you play. You need to bite them and be afraid. Who's going to go into that box when, corner kick. Suarez is behind you, Dave. Nervous?
Very.
Yeah, because I don't want to be a vampire.
No.
I don't want to be part of the undead when Luis Suarez decides he's going to suck my blood. And even from my thigh. I guess there's different areas that you can change a person. But that is that's. Can you remember when all that stuff was going on?
I do remember that.
What is the urge in a sport where you think biting is okay? Like even Mike Tyson. Like think about it. You're in a sporting event, and the first thing that crosses your mind is you're going to bite someone. Now, the only time in hockey, do you remember who was it that got his hand, his forearm, but he was kind of choking the guy out from behind? Yeah, and I want to say it was a Leaf.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
I think it was a Leaf.
Here we go.
Who was that?
Here's the answer.
I believe it was Pacioretty holding Grabovski.
I
think it was
like
Grabovski that got accused of it. Yeah.
But it was a reaction because he was getting kind of choked out.
Yes.
And when that arm is by, and it was like a bare arm right by his mouth, I think he just didn't want to die.
And that was the only. And
it kind of saved him a little. But you know what? Grabowski didn't get really all that much for that.
Well, there was never a definitive camera angle that showed that he did it.
Would you have done it? Would you do it?
Sure you would.
I would.
I
would.
Last resort, yeah.
If this is going on, and it's right by here, you're gonna get it. Yep. Well, look, the things I would do to another human being to win anything, Monopoly, would be shocking to most people. Why did you stick a pen in his eye? Because after I got out of jail, clearly he was going to charge me too much on Boardwalk.
That's right.
And you know how you get out of pain on Boardwalk? Pen in eye.
Yeah. I was gonna say,
well, you must have got into
somebody.
Board games with your brother must have been not good.
Board games with my brother were fist fights until the age of about 14.
I thought you were going to say to about 40.
No. Because somewhere around when Mike hit 14, all of a sudden he woke up one day and he was like 2 feet taller than me.
Yeah, it's not.
Like, hey, that's cool. No, sure. You can have Park Place and Boardwalk. That's fine with me. Oh, you want to put hotels on it and I'm going to pay? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bunch of tweets here. Ted Nesbitt, our good friend from Blade Tape.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Soccer. You have your Ireland. I have my Iceland. Found out my parents passing my lineage is Icelandic.
Wow.
When did you find this out, Ted?
So he's been
today? Ted Nesbitt, the Viking?
I've been a diehard fan of Iceland the last 48 hours and going forward.
What the hell? What is this?
You know what? That's a pretty cool country to have roots to, considering that the soccer program is almost one of the second best favorite teams of the world, just because how cool that was and the cheer and everything like that.
Oh yeah.
And how small the country is. I remember when I was covering handball at the Olympics.
By the way, he is not making that up.
No.
The sports that he's covered, you go, well, who would want to do that? Who'd want to cover and do play-by-play for archery? By the way, I still have no idea how that goes. I still don't know how you call that. By the way, they paid him a fortune.
Yeah,
he made a ton.
I know. I wish I was still there doing that on the side. But Iceland in handball was arguably the loudest crowds, and it was in London.
That's like European handball.
That was European handball.
Because if you like hockey and you follow it, it's not that far of a stretch that you wouldn't watch.
I will go to my grave saying that I cannot believe handball has not caught on in Canada.
It's true. There's a couple sports.
There are so many. Like if you make the combination of a good basketball hockey player and you turn him into a handball guy, Canada should be not only a competitive handball team, but a top 10 in the world. That's
like there's certain sports. Look, there's a goalie. There's a goalie, and there's guys hammering each other. Not full on like it is.
No, but it
is physical.
It is aggressive.
Like if you saw it during
there's no granolas out there, even though they look like it.
No, the London Olympics. It was the loudest of almost all the venues.
It was. And now tell me the truth.
Yeah, I watched it.
I couldn't stop watching.
I watched it.
I was so happy I got a sport I liked, because there's so many garbage sports out there. But, if you don't have track and field part of the Olympics and you're not that guy that gets chosen to do that, it's like it's nice to get the basketball because of what
That's good.
the world has to offer, and handball was sneakily one of my favorite sports, and now I've watched it to this day. I'll even scan it on Sports Interaction when they actually have lines for European handball, and you kind of know some of the stars and some of the good countries, because you look at the Scandinavian countries are very good. The French countries, unfortunately, they're still hated in handball as well, are very good, and it's just different destinations in Europe have better handball players, and I'm surprised Canada doesn't have an entry in it.
Here's Ted again. You got to see the papers. I just found them. I'm a Sol Munson. The World Cup jerseys are on order. By the way, if you've seen this, and I don't know if we can get a really good shot of this. I'll try to do my best here.
Yeah.
And people wonder, it's the coolest thing.
Yep.
And
there you go.
Ted, we got to get you on. Like, you should come in tomorrow. Let's make a big announcement. Come on, let's do it. So is that upside down, or can you see it? So there it is. Is it upside down?
It is, yeah. Right side up.
For Christ's sakes, Russell, could you do something? You're so shit.
There we go.
Here we go.
That's the way to do it.
There we go. So there's your blade tape right there, and they can do anything with this thing.
So basically what it is, too, it's the protective. Instead of using stick tape, you use this. It lasts longer. It's more protective. You can put any kind of team logo on it. Like, these guys could actually sit there and, you have your team, the Knights, the Royals, whatever they're called. You could actually have the team logo on it, just like Raw Mike Richards' logo with the face and everything like that. It looks awesome. They also do the gripping on the top of the stick as well. So, it's something you might want to look at it with our friends. Okay. Oh, you actually got it there. Yeah,
got it in there.
Russell has it on my camera right here, right up here. And you know what? Honestly, these guys, you just tell them what color you want in the world, and they'll do it.
Get Icelandic colors, apparently. Apparently.
Well, you know what? Nice colors, though, right? Red, blue, white.
No, they're great.
Can't go wrong with that.
Also, you should get. You know what? Get the DKI guys, because they all play hockey.
Yep.
Get that done on there.
By the way, blade tape, you wouldn't believe how many sticks I go through in a year. I'm just saying.
True hockey.
I'm just saying true hockey.
Yeah.
Right-handed shot. I like the Hossa curve, by the way. I like the little twitch at the end of it. It's just fantastic for what I do.
I got to tell you, this was awesome begging at the end of the show.
I could do it longer if you want.
Yeah, sure.
We just become best friends.
Yep.
You want to go do karate in the garage?
Yep.
Ted the Viking.
Ted the Viking. I'm okay with it.
So tell me, Eric Jorgensen Mehugen, who will be doing the pillaging today? I think it's Ted's turn. The one with the blade tape? Yeah, it's got a great grip on the club. A lot of the swords that tend to fall out, and some great colors for the blades too.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Okay, tomorrow we got some more stuff and hopefully some more announcements. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Have yourself a great day. Thanks so much and remember, subscribe like you've been doing. We appreciate it both on the website, rawmikerichard.com, and especially on YouTube. Just do it.
Peace out.